Hey guys, hope you are all having a fantastic morning. Today, we are going to discuss in detail about how families are being left homeless, and why it is that it's not reported or even seen. Invisible homelessness is a growing epidemic that is quietly growing and being left unreported, at least for now. Today, we bring light into a topic that, if trends continue as they have been, will be a major contention to handle in the future. Once again, much of the problem is the consequence of Wall Street's insatiable hunger for the housing market. I want to thank Britt Kennerly, Isadora Rangel and Anjanette Damon for their amazing work which inspired me to make this video for you guys. Before we start, let me quickly state that I am not a financial advisor, and that all content discussed in this channel is simply information gathered that I deem important for people to know, so that they can make informed decisions. All efforts are aimed to better understand the nature of the current market in anticipation of the greatest squeeze in financial history. Let's get started. Behind the illusion of American success that is sold to us on the media lies a stark and grim reality that many of us have not really even imagined. A homeless problem is taking place across America, and it's currently hiding behind the doors of motels and hotels. In far too many cases, these tiny rooms are crowded by families that have faced evictions or other problems brought upon by the failure of the American government to prioritize the well-being of their citizens. Dicey accommodations are made for undesirable tenants that can't afford to live anywhere else. If they are working, many often have problems being unable to save for the first and last month's rent. Desperate for an alternative to have somewhere to sleep, they turn to hotels which allow for rent on a daily, weekly or monthly basis. The problem with the situation is that in order to get off the streets would mean that they will end up spending a lot more money on hotel rates rather than what they would otherwise have to pay for a home rental. That in turn prevents them from being able to save enough money to pay for the move-in costs. The statistics don't lie. Unless people in these most unfortunate circumstances are being helped by the government or a charity, they will be stuck in this never-ending cycle of never being able to evolve. There are many issues to contend with this growing change that is taking place. Let's first take a look at the position hotels and motels are finding themselves in. Interviews and research suggest that the situation has grown so dire that businesses have had to become extremely cutthroat, and sometimes for reasons that will have you scratching your head. Hotels and motels are finding a lot of demand for their rooms, which has allowed them to jack up prices as well as leverage inflexibility as to who they let stay. Owners of these businesses have been increasingly rigid in the past couple of months, tasking their hotel and motel staff with rehabilitating the reputation of their businesses, who have been the haven to drug dealers and prostitutes. Again, due to a growing number of homeless people, these businesses have a ton of leverage since demand is increasing over time. Let me just cut to the chase. The owners of these buildings want to fix their reputation so that they can keep moving prices up. It's the most logical and sensical explanation. However, what was most interesting of this was the fact that a great many of these businesses started becoming rigid at the same time. A closer look into the situation finds that Wall Street has been heavily buying into motels and hotels. Anticipating the homelessness that would result as an outcome to their devotion to devour the housing market, they have also been quick to start purchasing motels and hotels in order to derive profits from those most affected. The thing with Wall Street is that, as owners, co-owners or investors of hotels and motels, they want higher returns on their investment over time. They aren't satisfied with the exploitation of people already down to their last penny, they want to dry them out of every nickel they have. With their antics forcing people out of homes, they have supplied their other side of the business model with no shortage of clientele. Government agencies are trying to cope with the rising demand, and charities are doing their best, but it is not nearly enough, and demand keeps on growing month over month. There seems to be no slowdown to this catastrophe, and the bills are soon going to be passed on to low and middle income class. You see, one way or another, the government will be forced to respond to this. Given that Wall Street is the one pulling the strings and paying senator and presidential campaigns, it makes sense that whatever legislation is put in place will not be to fix the problem, which would entail telling Wall Street to back off the housing market, the condo market and now the motel and hotel markets. Instead, if history repeats itself as it always does, what's going to happen is that more tax-derived funds will be distributed to help these people. In other words, Wall Street and Washington will once again socialize the costs of leaving an unregulated market sector do what they want while allowing them to capitalize all the profits. It's a win-win for them. In fact, the housing crisis is so bad that we are seeing hotels being torn down completely when unable to raise prices to whatever the owners want. You see, Another problem with hotels is that if you have too many in, say, a particular district or sector in which you are trying to raise the value to, too many hotels and motels will intrinsically lower the value overall given that they attract so many homeless people. As such, owners are now decided to clear the way by buying and demolishing these properties in order to replace them with billions of dollars worth of investor money for casinos and other entertainment businesses. Block by block, Wall Street seems to be increasingly interested in evaluating every single aspect of business and opportunity cost, and sometimes have come to the conclusion that simply serving homeless people might not be the best way to make a profit. Instead, if the place makes sense to build a good entertainment business, they will opt to go forward with it and quite literally leave the same people they left homeless without a roof. They are also buying other hotels and motels in nearby areas just to take them down for the sake of raising value to other properties they own in the area. In other words, it's a full-on scorched earth policy for these parasitic degenerates. City leaders have not been rushing to stop this based on what I and many others looking into the matter have seen. The reason for why they have been so reluctant is because they are seeing this as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to remake the cities. Many times, some of the cities where these changes are taking place are a bit old and have high levels of criminal activity. With Wall Street strong-arming their way into manifestation, city officials have become quite enthusiastic to have big money come into town, raise property taxes and bring value, even if they will only receive a penny out of it all since Wall Street is the one poised to make a killing on it, not the city or tax-paying citizens. What I find most disturbing is just how easy all this is happening, with little to no pushback. Reading into some of the stories of how people have been left homeless, you will find that it's not some unique type of character that has always lived on the hinges of society. A case that came to mind was that of a family that moved from a 5-bedroom house in Ohio over to Florida, and were unable to find housing before a sudden hurricane came and left them unemployed for some time. After a couple of weeks of being unable to meet rent, they were evicted. Having to switch from hotel to motel constantly left them without being able to allocate enough resources to get an apartment, because hotels and motels are increasing prices almost monthly in many places since demand is so great. The saddest part of this story is that it is slowly becoming the normal standard. We cannot afford to see homeless people as just drug dealers and prostitutes. You could easily land yourself in this trap set up to catch you when you are down. Look how fragile the economy is, you really feel safe and confident you will be fine if things suddenly flip. I bet you my AMC and GME shares that these people thought the same at one point, and then reality hit them. Wall Street's plan is to keep these people in this cycle as long as possible to extract as much money as they can from them and then move on to the next one. Cities are letting all of this take place, and new files show that they are actually helping facilitate the demolishing of hotels and motels by deferring building permits for the projects that will replace them. Everyone has a price tag above their heads, and Wall Street does not give a care, and neither does your city officials, much less the federal government. They will buy and own as many hotels and motels, and if the city seems like it has promise for further growth, they will demolish them and force homeless people to relocate outside the cities or be pushed out by force in order to bring in more value for other properties they might have invested in. It's as Machiavellian as you can get, and what is most surprising to me is how no one is talking about this. I and some others are starting to call this invisible homelessness. We might not be aware of it, but there are tons of droves of people being forced into hotels and motels, so we are given the impression that everything is fine when it's not. We don't see it, but the problem is there and getting worse by the month. Of all the videos I have made touching on the current housing market crisis, I find this one to be among one of the most important ones I have touched. I am really proud that I made this video, because it is so important to be aware of this current issue as it unfolds. I know some of you will talk about this to others and help bring attention to this. Though one of the darkest subjects we have talked about, invisible homelessness, is incredibly important to know. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of the video, and if you yourself have any personal or second-hand experience with this issue. I hope this video was informative to you guys. Feedback is crucial here, so let me know your thoughts, or at the bare minimum if you can't do that, just hit the like so I know. I want to thank you so much for watching this video. I appreciate each and every single one of you taking a moment out of your morning to watch this whole video through. It means the absolute world to me have a nice consistent audience take interest and participate in these little economic deep dive videos. Remember that everything with Wall Street is connected, which is why I am branching to these different sectors of the economy. If you want to support this channel, I have a Patreon link in the description as well as some one-time donation links for Cash App and PayPal. Thank you again for being a part of this channel. I will continue striving for better content. Hope you keep having a great day, and I hope to see you later today on the recap video. Until then, keep on buying the dip and to the moon.